Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, I want to talk about RNG, last epoch, and some of the plans going forward with a current build that I'm playing. So recently, I had just gotten finished with farming on the Sabertooth Beastmaster, which has been going absolutely wonderfully. We did T4 Jirla, we did a bunch of other content, Grandeur Corruption, did some bosses. It was absolutely wonderful all the way through. Does plenty of damage. We had to dump Bear, right? But what happened was I was talking with a few of my buddies on Discord. We were just messing around, right? And we were talking about a recent video that Perry made. Perry made a video about crit vulnerability and marksman, right? So crit vulnerability got nerfed. It can only stack up to 10 stacks now, and it only gives you 20% chance to be crit. Now, the problem with this is this essentially kind of ruins Icicle Marksman overall in a little bit of few ways. Now, you can still play Icicle Marksman, and it's still a very powerful build, but you will no longer be able to reach that coveted 100% crit chance easy anymore because base crit is very hard to get in Marksman, and Woundmaker here was kind of the main way of getting base crit as a marksman. As bows in general, as you can tell, they have a lack of base crit, and there's actually not an affix second you can craft with base crit. So, of course, we're like, well, Dread, what if we kind of turn the tables a little bit and fix it, right? So what happened was I started the evening, right? Made even a little document here. You can read it real quick if you want. Some of it's in Comic Sans and some of it's in other texts. It's because we thought we'd be funny. I thought it was funny at the time. Last night was kind of a blur. But essentially what happened was I first wanted to slam a Reign of Winter. I dropped a 2 LP Reign of Winter while farming on the Sabertooth build, farming for Aurelia's Path, so I decided, why not? Let's slam it, right? So I ended up with T6 damage over time and T5 attack speed. This is mainly so that we can try to play a bleed Icicle Marksman setup, which is something I want to play in the future, but that has been postponed. Now, after that, right, on the same evening, I had rolled a Boldar's Wrath with T6 melee crit. Now, if you don't know why this is so important, it makes it so that you can essentially play Earthquake Werebear in a very smooth way, mainly because there's not many ways of getting base crit for your Earthquake outside of your weapon, but you're using a Boldar's, which means, of course, it needs to have base crit. Otherwise, you have to use a Summon Spriggan Companion, right? So yeah, now we're running a Boldar's Wrath. Cool, right? Well, we have a Boldar's Wrath for later. But then that's when things started getting a little funny. So that thing about marksman, it came back up, right? And I was like, well, Rain, uh, well, if we were a blade dancer, right, we could go low life with Exanguinus, right, and run Death's Door, and that would solve all of our crit issues, right? Because it gives us 24% base crit while low health. Now, the only way of abusing this, the base crit portion of this is, of course, Exanguinus. So we're like, okay, well, we got to get an Exanguinus, right? Obviously, this was a joke. We weren't being serious at all, right? Because you'd have to play a low-life Blade Dancer and play it as a marksman, right? So that you could play with something like a Drelkor's Compass, right? Because Drelkor's you can't get base crit, and Woundmaker sucks now, right? But then we ended up dropping, of course, about 5 seconds after that, or not even 5 seconds, this may have been a minute or two, right? Right after that, I dropped in Exanguinus. We were floored, absolutely floored. Like my jaw was on the ground at this point. And then, of course, we rolled the Exanguinus and we hit T6 Vitality and T5 Life. Now, why does that matter? Well, what happened was I was actually crafting on a Primalist base, and I was using Runes of Chaos, Glyphs of Chaos on the other prefix to try to go for something like Intelligence or something like that, right? But it ended up rolling into a primalist specific modifier. So if you don't know, on specific modifiers on body armor and helmets, you can roll into those, and if you try to put it on an LP item, it would lock the item to that class. So for instance, I rolled aspect of the shark on my exanguinous, which means that, I mean, on my chest that I was going to use for exanguinous, right? And I didn't have a way of removing it. So if it hit aspect of the shark, right, it meant that I would not have been able to use this on, of course, my Blade Dancer, because it's not a Primalist, right? So, cool. All right. So we hit that. I think it's a 3 out of 4 to hit that, a 1 out of 4 to ruin the item. So we fixed that. But then after that, Rain and I were talking. You know what? We already have an exanguinous. Do I have everything else? And I looked through my stash, and I had been farming Cremoris, so I definitely got the other options. So we had access to a Last Steps of the Living, and of course, it hit the 1 out of 4 and hit the hybrid health. So we were just laughing our butts off at this point, and at this point, we were just kind of like playing along with the meme, right? And we wanted to keep talking about this low-life Blade Dancer that uses a bow, right? This is an archetype that has existed in the past, but not to this extent, right? And then after that, we of course slammed my Frostbite Shackles, which we rolled tier 6 intelligence. If you don't know why that's important, it gives us a bunch of ward retention, which is important for a lot of different Frostbite Shackle builds, which is really funny, really, really funny, right? We're like, okay, that's fine and all. We got all this luckiness all in one night, right? How far we can push it. Well, Rain did me a favor, and he actually put everything into a planner, and we realized that Heirloom of the Lost Nomad, a ring, was one of our best options for a ring base, right? Because it gives us a lot of flat, it gives us a lot of res. So we're like, okay. So if you don't know, this ring is actually very, very, very rare. It is very rare, but it drops with LP more often to make up for that. Now, I looked at my stash, and I already had 2 of them. 2 1LP ones were laying around, right? We had 2 1LP Heirlooms of the Lost Nomads laying around, as you can tell behind my face here. Now, the problem is, like, we only had 2 of them. So, I think it was like 5 seconds after I talked about that. We talked about Heirloom. We're like, hey, it'd be a good idea. We then proceeded to drop a 2LP Heirloom of the Lost Nomad. So, of course, to keep the meme going, we slammed that, and we slammed the Heirloom. And we managed to slam the perfect modifiers that we wanted because of certain reasons that I'll talk when we eventually make the build guide for this build. So we're like, okay, we have gotten lucky enough. Now, the main thing is Nightbringer, the quiver you can see there. This is required to make that low life build work. I have not done Void Heart in this patch, so I hopped on the Storm Totem character, right? And I went and farmed Void Hearten, right? And we were like, okay, while we were playing this, right, and messing around, what happened was I was like, Rain, hey, we've tempted fate already enough tonight, right? Why not? Let's make a deal. If I drop a 1LP Nightbringer, first try on Void Hearten, right? I will play a low-life Gelcor's Blasting Knife build, a low-life one for Marksman, as a joke, right? Because it's a terrible idea, and it is a terrible build. We were just messing around, memeing around, right? Well, guess what dropped on my first Hearten? Turns out we're gonna have to play a low-life Blasting Knife build in the future. As a joke, by the way, don't play that. And we hit Nightbringer. If you don't know why Cold Res is so strong, is because that's 41% ward retention, right? And that was my luck for the rest of the night. So of course, we're playing a Blade Dancer, a low-life Blade Dancer, right? We're gonna be playing that as a bow character with like drill cores, all the space crit. We're going to be dealing a lot of a decent amount of damage while also being very tanky for a marksman's sake, right? All of this combined. Now, of course, I had to make a joke, and we made a new meme. Is this a marksman? Yes, this is a marksman. Yeah, it's a blade dancer, but we're actually playing marksman because EHG has gone through and systematically nerfed marksman so hard that it is literally better to put on an exsanguinous, right? And the last steps of the living, and then go low life blade dancer to abuse this base crit than it is to just play a simple marksman and get all the marksman stuff. That's not worth it in comparison to the 24% base crit from Death's Door. What does that mean? That means that marksman is in a very rough spot. So hopefully they fix that. But yeah, that's pretty much my story of last night. Normally I don't make videos like this, but I had to because it was absolutely hilarious and I wanted to go through everything that went through. So with all that being said, I have a low life blade dancer bow multi-shot character to go play and level and do. So with all that being said, this has been Dread. Bye.